Travel is more than just ticking off countries. It's about the people, the culture, the food, the moments. I'm Pippa Hudson, and on Wonder the World, I invite you to join me every week as we explore destinations both near and far, with the help of fellow adventurers who share their unique travel stories. Listen to my podcast wherever you get them.
Let's walk the talk.
702.
702 indeed. Build One South Africa has said that the government, if the government can show flexibility for foreign entrants, then it must do the same urgently for South African businesses who have been complaining about some stringent measures that the policy places on their business and the ability to their inability to become agile as a result. Mmusi Maimane is leader of Build One South Africa, and he joins us right now for the next few minutes, and then we will have a word with Tebogo Khaas. Mmusi, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. Good morning to you and welcome to 702.
Good morning, Thabo, and happy Africa Month or Africa Day, and thank you for having me on your show.
A great Africa Month and Africa Day to you too, good sir. Straightforward to this issue, do you believe, is it your impression that the minister really altered and produced this directive in order to benefit specifically Starlink?
I certainly do, and I think that the timing of it certainly confirms that view, and Minister Malatsi has every right to go and defend his case at the Portfolio Committee. I think the broader point that we must not lose is that the South African Constitution enjoins us to achieve measures that address historical injustices. And all of us who are constitution-loving people believe in that. What ultimately needs to happen is that we must recognize that BBBEE has reached its point. And now what we've got to do is create legislation that addresses redress, but is also future focused in economies that are changing. So what I think is the broader point that should not be lost here is that perhaps we need to rethink how we do redress. And we mustn't do it specifically for Starlink or for anybody. We must do it so that the gross capital formation or the rate of investment that South African companies is engaged in is relatively low, and we must incentivize them to invest more, and we must attract foreign direct investment. So to me, I think rather than us looking at this just only narrowly through Starlink, we need to look at it broadly and say, what are the new sets of legislation we can enact that achieve what Mr. Malatsi is trying to do, which is equity equivalent or whatever? I think you will go down a route there that will also end up not achieving what you want. I think we need to create a system where we empower education, we change the dynamics of transformation, and ultimately achieve a greater rate of investment. That is what we need to do.
And that's in a long term, right, Mmusi? You talk about skills development and obviously capacitating our local businesses. But in this instance, we would look at the equity part of it, wherein companies, local companies of previously or historically disadvantaged individuals or groups get to benefit directly from a huge deal that places itself on our economy. And that is also not free. It is sold. So as a result, you are also saying that if we can do that and if we can alter some regulations for international company, particularly Starlink, we should think of doing the same for local South African companies. Don't you think that will open the floodgates of exploitation of this well-intentioned piece of regulation?
I think when you look at the nature of what BBBEE is at the moment, it is leading itself to overburden some regulation. It is complicated now. We are hitting a point where the dynamics of our society are vastly different to that of 1994. It doesn't mean that we've achieved complete emancipation. It doesn't mean that we haven't seen some progress. But I really think any law that's now at 30 years needs to be reviewed. So the exploitation that is occurring now in certain instances results in high levels of fronting. It creates distortion in compliance. It makes labor law cumbersome to follow. So if you want the thing to work better, I think it needs a review. So it's not about removing redress. Yeah. It's about asking the question, how can we do it better for the next generation? Sure. Because as we enter into the fifth industrial economy and we look at things like, artificial intelligence, etc. It is going to change the composition and the nature of work. For me, the fundamental question South Africa must ask for itself is, what do we want and what do we want more? That doesn't mean we don't want everything. There are certain things we want more. And we need to incentivize businesses in job creation. We need to incentivize businesses in skilling. We need to invest in our townships because ultimately at the end of the day, thanks to technology, people can work, live closer to home. What are incentives that we put into that? Now, if we were to create those as equity equivalents, as an argument, then you could ultimately see yourself achieving the very things you want for South African businesses to be able to do.
Mmusi, is it your impression that Starlink is skipping the queue?
It is. It is. And I think ultimately there are many different types of technology that we need to be importing into South Africa. Mr. Musk cannot just be the only one, surely. And whether the technology, what's furthermore important is that as we bring that technology here in South Africa, what are other skills that we need to transfer so that more South Africans can participate? So I would argue that I think the other service providers in this space have a case to be aggrieved, because I'm almost certain many of them have been looking for the same issues to say, how do we address this so that we can also invest in South Africa? To create special rules for a particular company is, I think, unfair.
Yeah.
And I also do think that this is not, in some ways, there are other companies who have invested in a similar way. This is a unique one in the ICASA regulations and the 30% requirement on equity. I would urge that certainly in a digitized economy of the future, the entire thing needs review so that South African companies can invest and more companies can invest in this
Before
space.
I say goodbye to you, is it not your impression that the benefits outweigh the inconvenience and the skipping of the queue, if you will, not just for Starlink perhaps and for other companies that are keen to come and invest in South Africa? Should we not make an exception under such circumstances, given the dire urgency of much needed injection into our economy?
There's a saying, don't waste a crisis. And I think given that we are now here, this is a great opportunity to review the entire piece of legislation and make sure that the queue is fair for everybody. And I think this is a great crisis for us to debate as South Africans, to attract investment and create employment for people.
Thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it. The leader of Build One South Africa, Mmusi Maimane. In the next few weeks, we'll be forced to call him Dr. Mmusi Maimane.
702
Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
Public Interest South Africa is petitioning Parliament, and they are opposing the recent proposal by Minister of Communication and Digital Technology, Malatsi, to exempt multinational satellite operators from compliance with South Africa's broad-based black economic empowerment, otherwise known as BBEE. And you'd know that it was published and a proposed policy direction to communications regulator ICASA to look into the licensing requirements for satellite operators. And Tebogo Khaas represents Public Interest South Africa, where he's the chair. He's not taking any of that lightly. Tebogo, thanks for your time. Welcome to 702. Good morning to you.
Good morning, and thank you for having me, Mashao.
Hey, thank you. Good say. Hey, let's go straight to it. You are opposing this, and you are not very excited about this. Why do you want to go ahead in this manner? Do you think that the minister is mistaken somehow? If so, how?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And before I respond to it directly, let me just take one step back and just make this overarching statement.
Yes, sir.
It appears to me that in the quest to outdo each political party's members within the GNU, some cabinet members you'd find, especially from the DA, they are likely to want to overreach in terms of their role.
Yeah.
We do not dispute the role that the Minister of Communication plays or should play in this space as far as the telecommunications regulations and all that is concerned. But it appears from this conduct and the speed with which he seeks to process this issue, which speed is only matched by that when those applicable when the Scorpions were disbanded, will encroach on an area that we believe falls within the purview and space of the Department of Trade and Industry. And if there's no coordination or alignment with government's overall policy, and you find individuals making policy determinations almost like executive orders, as was done by Mr. Rupert, I would imagine also on the back of his knowledge that he probably has got the support of the Minister of Communications, who is a DA member. It's a dangerous territory that we are treading in. And this will lead to the misapplication of equity equivalence, the very same tool that we believe is instrumental and can be applied and should be applied selectively, measurably, but deliberately. And we should be able to find mechanisms to measure the efficacy of such instruments.
Tebogo Khaas, wouldn't you agree that urgent times call for urgent measures? Wouldn't you agree that the level of our economy right now, looking at the unemployment rate, looking at the issues that are facing us, we need to tweak and change where possible?
Possibly, and yes, I would agree with that statement. However, it does not mean that we must not conduct ourselves within the confines of the law. We're a democratic country that is premised on the rule of law. And the minute we start making policy pronouncements or passing edicts as on the fly, that's a dangerous situation. We are going to end up with state capture in the manner that we have never seen before, especially with regards to Elon Musk, who does not even set foot in South Africa, but wants to lord over commercial interests that affect the telecommunications sector. It is very...
Sorry, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
And it is very painful because despite the fact that the Independent Communication Association, ICASA, had invited Starlink for consultative engagements a few months ago, I attended those consultative agreements. And despite the fact that Starlink had committed to participate, they withdrew at the 11th hour, ostensibly because they knew that they don't have regard for ICASA. They've got more important and powerful allies in the likes of Mr. Rupert, Mr. Malatsi, and probably even the DA. And that is a dangerous precedent to actually allow, if it is to set in the manner that we see unfold with the published gazette by Mr. Malatsi.
Tebogo Khaas, you want Parliament to do what? You are petitioning Parliament to achieve what exactly? What should be the immediate? And I would assume there would be long-term effects as well. But of the immediate, what are some of the key outtakes from there?
Yeah, there's a few recommendations that we seek to make with Parliament. Chief amongst them would be to reassess the role of the DTIC in equity equivalence program governance, and make sure that there's policy coherence so far as that way. In other words, we seek to have government establish formal interdepartmental protocols to prevent such type of unilateral transformation in claims or programs as we see Minister Malatsi seek to do. That's one. Secondly, to suspend new equity equivalent program approvals pending review. And we're saying this because we need to be able to say that whatever were needs 5 years or 10 years ago that were found to be applicable in the telecommunication subsector may not present now. We need to do a needs analysis and make sure that whatever equivalent programs that we are implemented align with the needs of the country as we see today insofar as ICT, artificial intelligence, and the strive toward that is concerned.
Yeah, let me not... Oh, sorry about that. I just wanted to include some of our listeners who wanted to interact with you here through their voice notes. You'll go to a third one, but I also wanted you, given that we don't have a lot of time, to reflect on their thoughts once you've heard it. And feel free to send your voice notes to 072-702-1702.
Morning. In terms of Starlink deal, for 50 years or more, we've been very precious about things, and it's all great in the world to stand on principles. But the bottom line is this country is in a shambles because we do not have jobs. We cannot grow the economy. We can't employ our people. You can't eat principles. The man is a total... I can use quite a few words, but this is the reality when you are not, the most powerful country in the world. We need to get our people on jobs. We need to grow our economy. We really need to start getting pragmatic as South Africans. and deal with realities. The world is not the way we like it. Things are not the way we like it. We can't have what we want to have. But, it is, for me, the most important thing in our country is to give our people jobs, to create opportunities, to allow people to hope, to have dreams, to make plans for the future. And without a job and a steady income, you can't do that. I really hope that we are practical about this.
Good morning, Thabo. Tyron Randburg. With regards to this interview you're having now with this gentleman who's opposing the Starlink intervention, I just want to leave you with one or two thoughts. The first thought is, keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. That will never happen. That's just the definition of a madman or someone who's got nothing between his ears. The second thought is, remember, and I'll let you use this, you don't even have to quote me for this. Remember, blinkers were designed for racehorses, not humans.
I'll remember to use that at some point, Taryn. Tebogo Khaas, we only have about a minute and a half. I don't know if you want to respond to those two voice notes and quickly sneak in the third point that you wanted to do.
The less I say anything about his comments, the better, because I think they've been too uncouth. But suffice to say that at the heart of it all, we are not opposed to equity equivalent or to low orbiting satellite operators such as Starlink operators. In fact, we welcome that. We actually encourage them, including Viasat and many others out there players. But we want a process that is managed, that is transparent, and there's accountability to it. Because if we are going to reach areas, far-flung areas, underserved areas like Lusikisiki, Tigiline, Zanin, and all those far-flung areas, and make sure that government provides services. Technology, broadband technology is essential. And to do that, we know the limitations of the traditional providers such as Vodacom, Telecom, and all that. And it is the role that we believe the likes of Starlink can plug that gap. And so it is not that we don't want. And we were promised that jobs will be created with the arms deal, with the offsets. You tell me, are there any enduring or jobs that are created linked to that? The answer is, I don't think so, not to the extent that we were promised. So the same thing will happen, especially with Elon Musk, who's want to mislead, misinform, and lie outright about what, just to advance his own personal interests or commercial interests.
That's one issue that we shouldn't forget at all. Tebogo Khaas, it's been great having a chat with you. I hope we'll talk to you again in the near future. Tebogo Khaas is Chairperson of Public Interest South Africa.